Someone said to me recently, do you have to be so shocking? I said, well, it depends on the subject. And today, we're dealing with a shocker. I am Jonathan Downey, and this is Inside Interpreting. And let me warn you right off the bat, you may be offended by part of this video, but keep watching. Today we're talking about interpreter ethics. Wow, and I have to admit right off the bat, I am not an interpreting ethics specialist, but I am a keen watcher of debates on interpreter ethics. What we say about our ethics and our decision making says a huge amount about who we are as interpreters and what we want our business to look like. The traditional approach to interpreter ethics is quite simple. You get a code of conduct, you read it, you memorise it, and you do everything it says to do, and none of the things it says not to do. Okay, but that assumes that interpreters are kind of like robots, and we work on do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that. Now, that's great in a way, especially if you're beginning and you're a trainee and you've not really thought through the implications of interpreting, and you just need somewhere to start. Now, that's great for a start, but it's interesting how some codes of conduct are changing away from that. Because at the end of the day, life is too complex for a list of do's and don'ts. You know, don't add or omit. But if there's a misunderstanding rising that could cause a miscarriage of justice, is it still ethical to not add or omit? Don't add or omit, but if the doctor's clearly not understanding the patient and they're about to administer the wrong drug, is it ethical to cost someone's life because you didn't add or omit? Robyn Dean, whose work is definitely worth reading, makes a suggestion that instead of basing our ethics on do's and don'ts, we should base our ethics on the consequence of our actions. We should base our ethics on reflection, on reflective practice. Every decision that we take as interpreters, whether it's to add or omit or not to add or omit, whether it's to explain, whether it's to ask for clarification, carries consequences. There is no such thing in interpreting as a decision that doesn't have a consequence. And even our preferred stance of neutrality itself carries consequences. There is an argument, a very logical, well-based argument, that says that if you don't do anything, if you simply say what the person said and don't change anything, then you are inherently giving more power to people who are already powerful. Now, I don't want to go down the back roads of interpreters as advocates. That's a whole other discussion, and there are many, many dangers in that path. But there is something to be said for the realisation that no matter which decision we take, it has consequences. And so which consequences do we want? Take the interpreting situation that I talked about a while back in some of the beginning videos, where I could see there was a misunderstanding, and I said, excuse me, the interpreter believes there's been a misunderstanding, and explained what happened. I'd let the client sort it. The consequence of me just leaving that to the clients was almost certainly going to be that the deal wouldn't go through. Perhaps costing jobs, perhaps costing the future of the company, and costing the French buying company days and money that they didn't need to be spending. The consequence of explaining that was that momentarily my role as an interpreter became more obvious, and they had to trust my judgment that they were really misunderstanding each other, and it put the event on pause for a little bit. But the other consequence was that the event was a success and both sets of clients came out happy. It's not that we're always choosing between do's and don'ts, it's about choosing which consequences we want to our decisions. I'm Jonathan Downey, and this is Inside Interpreting.